of 45 plus and around 30 minutes, 29 minutes. And I think you sent me, Max, yesterday, Paul George's 37 points in 20 minutes, which is really impressive. Really impressive. I don't know why he only played 20 minutes in that game. Maybe he got hurt. Paul George has gotten hurt once or 5 times during his career. But yeah, Caitlin Clark, Wendy, is the answer to that question. Until she joined that league, I couldn't have named more than 2 players, and I don't think I could have named more than 5 teams in the league. And she has changed that for people like me and a lot others like me. She's worth the watch, in my opinion. I enjoy that. Now, a couple of other players I have discovered in watching her games when she's played some of the other teams. It's not anywhere near, must watch for me. It's not like I'm watching every single one of her games, but the other night, I talked about it, sort of bounced around on the channels, and I landed on her Indiana game against Connecticut. They blew Connecticut out, but she was on fire in the game, and it was fun to watch. All right. This from my guy, Seth in Potomac. Seth writes, so Dallas and Philadelphia are overrated, according to Mike Jones. Yes, Seth. Mike Jones wrote a column yesterday in The Athletic with a list of underrated and overrated teams. Washington was not on the underrated list, but he had 2 NFC East teams on the overrated list, Dallas and Philadelphia. Seth writes, so Dallas and Philadelphia are overrated, according to Mike Jones. I can buy the Cowboys because they're always coming up short after being picked high in the preseason. But Kevin, football is about lines of scrimmage, and the Eagles are dominant on the offensive line and defensive line. The Eagles also have the best overall defense in the division and maybe the entire league. The only way Philly doesn't win the NFC East is if they get hurt like we did last year. So, Seth, you're not wrong about the Eagles up front. The Eagles have been loaded up front on both sides of the ball for a few years now, and it's been a big part of why they've been successful. Look, you could point to the offensive line injuries for them last year that ended up limiting them when they got to the postseason against San Francisco. Now, San Francisco was not a good defensive team. They were an injured defensive team when they faced them. That playoff game really is a weird game overall. That playoff game against the 49ers, talked about it a lot. I did bet Philadelphia that day. Part of the reason I am bitter about it, but God, did they really lay an egg? And A.J. Brown went out with a whimper and really went out, I thought, disgracefully in that it looked like he completely quit on the team in that game. We'll see what happens with him in New England. Look, Josh McDaniels, he can scheme some people open. Drake May's got himself an arm and some presence at quarterback. I would expect A.J. Brown to have a big year in New England. But the Eagles are loaded again, man, up front. If they're healthy along that offensive line, you've got Mailata, you've got Dickerson, you've got Juergens at center. You still have Lane Johnson at right tackle. I mean, they have a monster offensive line. And their D-line, I don't know, obviously an Aaron Donald, Myles Garrett combination in Los Angeles would be better. But when you've got Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis and Jomo and, now you've added, by the way, in that second level to Zach Bond and the rookie last year, Jahad Campbell, you've added Jonathan Grenard. You also added Reek Woolen to the secondary to join to join Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean. Yeah, the Eagles on paper have a great trenches both sides of the ball, and they have a great defense altogether. And let's not forget, their defense is so well coached. Vic Fangio is the dude and has been for a long time now. Pretty much the last 10 to 12 years as a defensive coordinator. For me, though, I'm buying Dallas could take a step back. Seth, you're right. I mean, Dallas always picked and never really fulfills whatever the preseason promises are. I think Dallas is loaded offensively. I mean, I think they're going to score for sure. The question with the Cowboys is they were terrible like we were on defense. Did they add enough defensively? Caleb Downs and some of the other additions, they'll get some players back that were banged up last year. But you know that Dallas always has a chance to disappoint. For me, Philly feels like a step back team in the NFC East and in the NFC overall. I don't even know why I feel that way. I'll try to articulate it here. I think number one is it just seems rocky right now at the top, meaning Nick Sirianni. He just seems from afar, not a Philly fan, to have been, I don't know, exposed a little. Maybe he's been played out a little bit. I think this is a big year for him. I mean, last year, he's been on the hot seat a couple of times. Now, he delivered 2 years ago in a big way. That team was awesome when they got to the postseason. I mean, that's going to go down as one of the most dominant Super Bowl beatdowns in Super Bowl history, their win over Kansas City with what they did defensively. But I don't know. Philly fans would have to push back or maybe, assist me in my gut feel that it just feels like it's teetering at the top. And then, I love the idea of Jaden Daniels under center. Love it. I am totally confident that David Blau and Jaden going under center more and a lot of what is done in the Shanahan style scheme, Ben Johnson style scheme, we all know what it looks like and feels like. I think it's a perfect fit for him. For Jalen Hurts, and I'm a big fan of Jalen Hurts, and I have been for a while, they're going to something resembling what Washington is going to. Sean Mannion comes from the Sean McVay, Shanahan tree. All right, he was with McVay. He's been with Kevin O'Connell. He's been in that realm. So the Eagles are making that same change with Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts and Jaden Daniels and Patrick Mahomes, they've been among the leading quarterbacks that have been in shotgun or pistol versus under center. Jalen Hurts, to me, does not feel like as natural a fit for the Sean Mannion system as Jaden does for the David Blau system. Or let me just say, Jaden does for the Ben Johnson, system, Kevin O'Connell system, et cetera, because that's where Blau's been, versus Jalen Hurts. Big year for Jalen Hurts. Now, maybe they'll run the ball better than they did last year with a healthy offensive line and with more zone run schemes with Barkley. But I think Jalen Hurts, to be at his best, needs to face the defense, not turn his back to the defense, and needs to be, not a full-time dual threat quarterback, but has to be pretty much presented as such the majority of the time. I think that's when he's been at his best. Look, Jalen Hurts has had some big games and big moments throwing the football, including in the Super Bowl that they lost to the Kansas City Chiefs. He was the best player on the field that day throwing the football. But it feels to me like Sirianni is teetering, and then will the fit with a I think Sean Mannion is going to be good. Everything I've read about Sean Mannion in recent years, he's been around and been in some really interesting locker rooms and been a part of some good teams. And I think what he's going to bring is proven, but will it be the right fit for Jalen Hurts? To me, Jaden's a natural in any system. I think Cliff Kingsbury's approach, Kyle Shanahan, Sean McVay, Ben Johnson, David Blau's approach. I actually like this idea of him under center more zone run scheme, more play action pass attempts, more bootleg, play calls or quarterback keepers as they call them. I actually like this fit for Jaden more than any other fit. I think he'll fit anywhere. Obviously, he fit in a primarily, not under center alignment with Cliff Kingsbury in 2024. I don't know if I feel the same way about Jalen Hurts, but is it possible that Saquon Barkley in this scheme ends up rushing for 1,800 yards and has the kind of season he had in 24 with that offensive line, and their defense dominates and they win that way? They certainly could. But yeah, the division's going to be very, very interesting this year. It doesn't feel to me like a foregone conclusion that Philly and Dallas are going to be, at the top vying for division supremacy with Washington and the Giants trailing behind. I think the division feels wide open. Does that, by the way, as it relates to the Eagles' defense overall and in the trenches, I do think that there are very good defensive teams in the league and in the NFC in particular. I think Green Bay should be really good defensively again. I think New Orleans has a chance to be good defensively. Tampa could be very good defensively. And obviously, Seattle, San Francisco, and the Rams could all be very good defensively. But another team that could be pretty good defensively, the New York Football Giants. They're likely to be better coached than they've been in the past. And look, they added players. They added Tremaine Edmonds. They added DJ Reader. Yes, they lost Dexter Lawrence, but they still have Brian Burns. They still have, Abdul Carter. They've got Javon Holland, in that back in the safety group. They've got a lot of really good players defensively. So the Giants could be an excellent defensive team too. I mean, ranking offenses, defenses in the division, all right? Defensive teams, it's easy. Philly 1, Giants 2. I don't know. Dallas, Washington tied for, third. I don't know where else to. I mean, I have a feeling our defense has a chance to be better than Dallas's defense, but I don't know that at this point. And then offensively, in order, I think in terms of assuming relative health, you'd look at Dallas's offense 1, Washington's 2, Philly's 3rd, the Giants 4th. That's the order I would put it in terms of division offensive and defensive rankings. I think you've got to put Dallas 1 because they just have so much firepower at skill positions with the 2 receivers, with Lamb and with Pickens, and then, with the big tight ends that they have with Dak and Javonte Williams. Man, I've been such a big fan of his, and he finally stayed healthy last year and had a big year. And Dallas's offensive line, you've got Guyton, you've got Smith, you've got Booker, at center. This is or at right guard, excuse me, the Alabama kid. You've got Dallas would be 1. I'll invite calls on this. 301-230-0980. 301-230-0980. Rank the division teams 1 through 4, offense and defense. Defense is pretty easy. I think it's Philly and then New York. And then we're talking about a distant third to either Dallas or Washington. I'll put them in a third place tie. But I do like Washington's overall personnel right now, but there's still so much that's unknown about Durante Jones. By the way, Dallas has a new defensive coordinator as well, in Christian Parker, first-time defensive coordinator. And then on the offensive side of the ball, I'd go Dallas 1, Washington 2, Philly 3, the Giants 4. That's my order. Also, does anybody else feel like, and you can articulate it any way you want, that this feels like a wide open division and maybe a step back season for Philadelphia? Going to look stupid 3 months from now when they're 9-1. Max will give you his rankings. Phone lines open 301-230-0980. Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980 and the team980.com. Is that true that Nick Sirianni's asking Chat GPT for a way to motivate his team this year?
Mm-hmm. It's real. It's very real.
Really?
Yeah, and it's why I'm so down on the Eagles, man. It's people just keep saying things that just really make my eyebrows raise. And not a lot of confidence in Philly this year. I don't know. I might be eating crow here in a few months, but we'll see.
This from Jaybird81. Kevin, the Eagles might be underrated. Who's saying they're going to be great this year? I think they're under the radar because A.J. Brown is gone. Thank you for that, Jaybird81. You know what? Actually, Mike Jones put him in the overrated category. I think I agreed with that because I kind of feel like there's a chance the Eagles will have a step back season, but there is part of me that agrees with what Jaybird81 is saying as it relates to the feeling about Philadelphia, and it has to do with A.J. Brown being gone, is that they don't have the same weapons offensively. They don't have a number one weapon. I mean, they do in Saquon Barkley. Now, just so you know, Jaybird81, the Eagles are the favorites to win the NFC East, and they are the third pick on average to win the NFC Championship behind the Rams and the Seahawks. The Rams are a pretty prohibitive favorite right now to win the NFC Championship. The average are at about plus 250, 2.5 to 1. All right, so basically 5 to 2. Seahawks are at like plus 580, and then the Eagles are at plus 850, plus 900 some places, and they're right there with kind of Detroit and San Francisco. But I see Philadelphia with slightly better odds in most shops, most places than Detroit and San Francisco. So the odds makers still like Philadelphia to win the division and to be in the mix in the NFC as the third favorite. I mean, you got the defending champions in front of them, and you've got, on paper, one of the best teams we've seen in recent memory in front of them in the Rams. 301-230-0980, 301-230-0980. Does anybody buy what I am feeling right now, which is I see and feel a step-back season for Philadelphia? And then what I did in the last segment is I ranked the teams offensively and defensively in the division. Offense, I ranked them Dallas 1, Washington 2, Philly 3, the Giants 4. Defensively, Philly 1, the Giants 2, and then a distant tied for third, Dallas and Washington. Max, what are your rankings?
So my rankings, offensively, Cowboys number 1 with all the firepower. Number 2, Philadelphia Eagles. They still have Devontae Smith and Saquon Barkley and an incredible offensive line. So I feel like that's a lot more than we have. Then there's a little bit of a gap, and it goes us in Washington. And number 4, I got to go with the New York Giants. Defensively, Eagles still sit at number 1 for me. This is where it gets a little bit. I'm not a huge believer in the Giants coaching staff, but the players that they have on the roster,
You're not a big believer in John Harbaugh?
Not with this iteration of the Giants.
Okay.
The Giants have also been posting things from behind the scenes, and his introductory speech to the team just did not.
I did see that the other day. It was a bit awkward.
It was. And then Matt Nagy also had something.
Nick Sirianni's initial press conference when he got hired by the Eagles was legitimately embarrassing for him.
It's true.
And it turned out well. I would not take John Harbaugh's rah-rah day one speech attempt where he talked about how great it is to be a part of the New York Giants. By the way, the Giants are a storied franchise.
Of course.
There's no feeling about that right now because they've been bad for a while. But the Giants, like our franchise, there is a storied history with our franchise. So I didn't have as much of an issue. It just was the delivery was just a bit awkward.
Well, and then there's another thing about the coaching staff. Matt Nagy, in his introductory meeting with the team, he signaled that the team will be physical, tough, smart, and detailed. Do you know what the acronym would be for that? PTSD, Kevin. So okay. I just, there's too many vibes things related going on with the Giants that I just can't get behind right now.
All right, so you've got the Giants. So you got who's the second best defensive team? Then?
Giants are 2 for me, but it's
so you went
I know.
deep into the Giants aren't very good on defense. You don't trust the coaching, but you still have them number 2.
This is still preseason rankings. You know what I mean? And I can't, given what our defense and what the Cowboys defenses did last year, I can't in good faith put the Giants any lower than 2 right now.
Okay,
but that can slide. Commanders are sitting at 3, and that might be a little bit of homerism on my part, and the Cowboys sit at 4.
All right, 301-230-0980. Two-parter here, kind of a 3-parter. Anybody else feeling Philadelphia could take a step back this year? There's just something about the way I feel about Philadelphia right now. And then I also think there is some truth to, because they lost A.J. Brown, there's like this idea that they'll struggle offensively. I think everybody feels like Philadelphia may struggle offensively. New OC, Jalen Hurts playing under center, and I would say, yes, Devontae Smith is a number 1, but he's not a top half of the league number 1 receiver. I don't think he is. Okay, they got the rookie from SC, Mekhi Lemon. Who else did they add wide receiver-wise? They added somebody else that we're forgetting. Dontavian Wicks and Hollywood Brown. Both of those.
Andy Dalton's the backup?
I'm sorry?
Andy Dalton's the backup? I'm finding out this.
Andy Dalton's the backup. Yeah. Remember Tanner McKee started in that season finale?
I do.
The next to last game, against us, right?
Yeah, we were worried.
Yeah. And he wasn't. There's been a lot of talk in Philadelphia over the last year and a half that he actually is a starter in the NFL. He didn't appear to be.
No.
All right. So do you have a sense, like I do, that Philadelphia could be in a step back season, A, and then B, rank offenses and defenses in the division? Let's start with my guy, Mark in Largo. Mark, go ahead.
Hey, what's up, Kevin? How you doing?
What's up, Mark?
Yes, I do feel like Philadelphia.
Why? Articulate it.
Because, okay, I don't think their OC was brought in for Jalen. I think their OC was brought in for the quarterback they drafted. That's what I think. I think.
Wait, what quarterback did Philadelphia draft?
Yeah, Philadelphia drafted quarterback, I think in the 4th or 5th round.
Cole Payton?
Cole Payton from North Dakota State. So you think he was brought in for that?
I think so. And here's the reason why I say this. You may say this is crazy, but it's not.
No, I'm listening. I'm all ears.
Let you cook.
Okay, hear me out. Hear me out. Philadelphia does not have a tolerance for coaches. You saw this with their coach that won them a Super Bowl. You're going to see this with Sirianni. I also think that quarterbacks is the same way. They went on Wentz, and they had Jalen Hurts. They had Jalen waiting in the rough for Wentz, and they got this kid waiting for to take Jalen. I think this could very well be Jalen Hurts' last year in Philly. Now that's it.
Yeah, it could be. You're right.
Yeah, that's it. Okay, this is how I rank. This is how I rank everything, and this is going to be different than everybody else. Okay, because I view who's the best player on offense and who's the best player on defense. Clearly, the best player on offense in this division is Jay Daniels when he's playing. All right, let's get that out of the way. He's the best player when he's playing. He's the best. You ask the D coordinator in Philly, who keeps him up at night is Jaden Daniels. It's definitely not Dallas's offense. It's Jaden Daniels. So I got them number 1 offense, Dallas number 2, Philly number 3, and the Giants number 4. Defensively, I got Philly number 1. I got Washington number 2, and I got Dallas number 3, and then I got the Giants. Look, Kevin, I hear what you're saying about the Giants and their talent, but they've had the same talent for the last 5 years.
Yeah, I'm not a Jackson Dart guy, so I'm not very optimistic about the Giants. I do like their defense, and I think their defense has been good and talented.
I agree with you on that.
Yeah.
I agree with you on that. Here's the problem. I think they're going to miss Dexter Lawrence because their defensive line is bland.
Of course. I mean, you're always going to miss Dexter Lawrence. Yeah.
And this is where I think it's going to be a long year for them. I think it's going to look, Kevin, I'll just say this. The last 2 times, my birthday's been on a Wednesday, we won the division. 15, 20, 26, we're going to win the division.
So your birthday, when your birthday's on a
this.
Thursday, they win the division.
So that's right. When
Okay.
your birthday's on a Thursday,
That's as good a theory as any other.
That's the way you got to look at it. Look.
Yeah.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
So there, a friend of mine who's a big Eagles fan, he said agreed, and he gave me some other reasons why. You know, he said he thinks Saquon Barkley's best is behind him. You know, Saquon Barkley did look a little bit worn out after that 24 season. By the way, he's had 2 healthy seasons in a row, and he did not get that done in New York. So there could be a step back there. The offensive line injuries were, serious injuries. So Dickerson, Juergens, he says they may never be the same up front. And then he's got the same concerns about Jalen Hurts in an offense that is more Shanahan as well. He needs to be dual threat to be at his best. And it sounds like they won't have him in that situation as much.
I think what you'll see with Jalen Hurts this year, Kevin, is this.
Yep.
It's going to be.
Oh, he also writes one other thing. He also writes Jalen Carter's the most talented player on the team, but doesn't always show up to play. And we've seen that with him.
And let me say this, too. And I think this is where I think Washington's going to have a big edge. Washington this year, their offensive line is going to move into the top 5 because when they move Brandon Coleman in at left guard and you have Coleman and Cosme, I think that is time enough for Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter. But
okay.
That being said, I'm going to go
look, I'm not counting out Chris Paul. He was outstanding last year. So I'm not plugging him in quite yet, Brandon Coleman.
But you got to see it. But it's kind of like what you said yesterday, Kevin. They got to see Brandon Coleman succeed because it's better for Adam Peters. That being said, this is what I think about Jalen Hurts.
Mm-hmm.
Jalen Hurts playing in this system is kind of like what Robert playing in Jay Gruden's system in 2014. It just didn't look good. And I think you're going to see that this year. This is why it will not shock me when things go south, probably after they get their butt kicked when they play us the second round here. Don't be surprised if Sirianni goes with the kid going down the stretch to see if he can play.
Okay. Thanks for the call, Mark and Largo, everybody. Let's go to Big C in D.C. Big C, go ahead.
Hey, what's going on, Ken? How you doing?
How you doing, Big C?
Ain't nothing much, man. Hey, look, man, Mark and Largo, I respect you and all, man. You're a great dude, but shut up. You don't know football. Now, this coming from a person that
easy.
Football,
Mark's got some wild opinions,
I get it.
but he adds a flavor to the show that not a lot of other people add to it.
I get it, Kev. I mean, that's why I say I respect him. You know what I'm saying? But this coming from an experienced person that played college football and played in the CFL for the Hamilton Tiger Cats. All right, so the bottom line is this. In offense, I got to give it to the Cowboys. I mean, they dominate. Dak been kicking out butts. He be kicking the Giants' butts. And he's been, half and half with the Eagles. So I put them 1. I put Eagles number 2 because they still high power. They still got Devontae Smith. I got to see what Jaden does, if he can stay healthy, if he can, become as good as what everybody says. So I put him number 3. And I don't trust the Giants. They still injured. They still have injuries from off season, from training camp. They lost their defensive end or defensive tackle out for the season.
Yeah, right. They had a bunch of spring injuries, correct?
Yeah. So the thing is that I don't trust them yet. But for defense, I would still go with Philly. They still dominant for Philly. And I'm gonna surprise everybody. I'm gonna go with the Cowboys, number 2. And the reason why I say that is because of Caleb Downs. I think that Washington should have picked him instead of Sonny Styles. It is what it is at this point. But all the free agencies that they got with Rashawn Gary, and, they still getting some healthy people back. So I think they're going to shock a lot of people. But the Giants, I think they're number 3. They still got, some dominant people. But number 4, I'm going to still go with Washington, my team, the Commanders. We still got a lot to learn. We still growing. So I'm going to just put that as that. Okay, that's it.
What was Hamilton, Ontario like?
Say again, sir?
What was Hamilton like, living in Hamilton?
And let me tell you, man, it was beautiful. It was It was going, man. I love the people.
How far
up there
away
in
is
Canada.
Hamilton from Toronto?
It's about 2 hours.
2 hours?
Yes, sir. But let me tell you, man, the people man, they love us.
Yeah.
And I love Canada. The thing is that only thing about it is it's just cold, playing.
Yeah.
you play below 20 degrees in the snow. So that's the only thing about it. But other than that, it's fun. I wish I was still up there. I love my country, but up there in Canada, man, it's lovable and respectable people.
Big C, thanks for the call, man. Appreciate it.
Thanks,
Mike, Ian, Athen, Paulie, Joe, stay on hold. Do you feel like I do that there's just, I don't know. I mean, there are a number of reasons that my buddy mentioned, and I had a few others, but I just feel like this could be a step back season for Philadelphia after quite the run, really, over the last decade. And then rank offenses in the NFC East and defenses in the NFC East. 301-230-0980. Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980 and the team980.com. All right. Lots of Philadelphia fans weighing in and helping me articulate why I think they might step back. It feels like Eagles fans, some of them feel like we might be onto something. This from Jason. Our kicker stinks. He signed a big contract, and he has sucked since. Yeah, Jake Elliott last year, and I just looked it up, 20 of 27 on field goals, his lowest field goal percentage of his career, 74.1%. He also doesn't make a lot of kicks against our team, in the last 2 years. I'd have to go back and look at it, but I remember that Thursday night game in 24, he missed a couple of kicks. He's missed a couple of kicks at FedEx at Northwest Field. And then this from Chandler. Chandler writes, A.J. Brown not on the team anymore. Take all your bad body language you want. Nobody's close to his talent or what he does to a defense. Not having him hurts. Yeah, I guess. But God, man, that game he had against the 49ers in the playoffs, he quit. He just flat out said, I am sick of playing on this team. All right, 301-230-0980, 301-230-0980. Are you with me on my hunch that Philadelphia takes a step back? And then rank the NFC East teams offensively and defensively. I've got Dallas 1 offensively, Washington 2 offensively, followed by Philadelphia and the Giants. Look, the reason I have Washington 2 over Philadelphia offensively is I believe in Jaden Daniels more than I believe in Jalen Hurts. And I also believe in Jaden Daniels in the David Blau system more than maybe Jalen Hurts with Sean Mannion. I like Sean Mannion, but Jalen Hurts to me is not as adaptable, versatile to I think Jalen Hurts has to play facing a defense, not turning his back on a defense. We'll see. So I've got Philly 3rd, Giants 4th offensively. Defensively, Philly's clearly the class defensively in the division. They're one of the best defensive teams in the NFL, followed by the Giants, and then I got a tie for 3rd with Dallas and Washington. I'm optimistic that Washington's defense isn't going to suck like it did last year, but no guarantees. Mike in Bowie. Mike, go ahead.
All right, my humble opinion is as follows, and I tried to take away all like Homer bias or like any favoritism. This is just, what I think. I see Dallas as number 1. I agree with you.
Offensively.
Yes, offensively. I'm just going to rank them like just overall because it'll just take too long to go through it, but I'll touch on it a little bit.
It doesn't take too long. That's what we're doing, offense and defense.
All right. I think Dallas's defense is going to be lights out better than it was. I think they have the best D tackles in the league, a combination of them. I think with Quentin Williams and Kenny Clark, they're going to be off the chain. I think with Donovan Rockaboo, his second year is going to be much better. And I think Gary and all of them are going to be hungry. They watched what Green Bay did to them in the playoffs a few years ago and went and got their players.
So do you have Dallas as the best offensive team and best defensive team in the division?
No, definitely. I have Philly as the best defensive team, but I have Philly as number 4. I agree with you. I think they've been getting weaker. They've been looking weaker. People have been figuring them out. I think them going against Dallas's offensive line, because Dallas built an amazing offensive line. They manhandled them in that first game, even without Carter. When he came back, Booker is manhandling Carter. Like they're pushing them around. So I think Dallas heavily invested in their lines, and that's make them better. That's like Jerry said, I'm doing the opposite of what I normally do. I would normally pay Micah, and I'm not going to do that. So I'm investing in the meat and potatoes of the team. I also think Giants are going to be way better. I felt like, I know you're not a Jackson Dart guy.
I'm trying to follow along. You've got Dallas as the number 1 offense, and Philly is the 4th best offense. Who's your second best offense in the division?
No, I think it's going to be Giants. I think
Giants are going to be the second best offensive team in the division. So you've got Washington 3rd. Then defensively, you got Philly as the number 1 defense. What about 2?
I would probably say Giants.
Okay,
I
because you
think the
talked
Giants
up the
will have
Dallas
to.
defense there. So I'm
They're
assuming
good,
you've got the
but
Dallas
it's too unknown.
defense third and
Yeah.
Washington fourth.
Yes, sir. That's it. That's
Okay.
what I have, and I think Philly's going to take a huge step back. People have been seeing it for a while. I think Washington's still unknown. You can't tell what they're going to be
You like
like.
the Giants to take a big step forward, it seems like. It
Yeah,
seems like
they're
you
gonna-
like a
I think-
Dallas Giants battle for the NFC East.
Yeah, because they play hard, and Jackson Dart goes for it. If he stays healthy, and then I don't think the Cam guy is going to stay healthy because he plays like smash and grab too much. Yeah, but their receivers go after it. Their team goes after it. Like when they played last year, you felt like there was a lot of emotion on that field. Like they're going for it. They're young and hungry. Philly didn't feel young and hungry. Philly felt old and broken and still hungry. But Giants
good call,
felt like
Mike.
they were close.
Good call. Look, I think this division is open, man. I do. And if you look at the odds for the division, the Eagles are the shortest favorite among the four divisions in the NFC. They're plus 125. And you've got a couple of other favorites that are a little bit like the Rams right now are almost even money to win the division over
and even
defending
when you look at the Cowboys,
champions.
The Cowboys were weak on linebacker. I don't know how they got winners from San Francisco. That was amazing.
Yeah.
So their linebacker core is going to have winners over Sean and the guy they drafted in the second pick for Micah. So
look, I think Washington and Dallas both have made so many changes defensively that it's going to be interesting. And let's mention it, 2 first-time defensive coordinators in Christian Parker in Dallas and Durante Jones in Washington. Thanks for the call, Mike. If you're on hold, we'll do this for another segment. Stay there. I promise I'll get to you next. There's a lot of reporting yesterday on LeBron James, Anthony Davis, etc. We'll get to that. Brandon Ayuk decided to break a 3 or a 4 day silence on social media, and the result was local and surprising. We'll get to that. But we'll do one more segment here of the NFC East, breaking it down offensively and defensively heading into 2026. Offensively, I rank Dallas's offense 1, Washington's 2, Philadelphia's 3, and the Giants 4. Defensively, Philly's easily the best defensive team on paper, not to mention the best coached defensive team on paper heading in, followed by the Giants, and then I've got Washington and Dallas tied for third. A lot of unknowns with Dallas's defense and Washington's defense. Several new additions. Washington's got more new additions than the Cowboys have, but also 2 first-time new coordinators. Durante Jones in Washington and Durante Jones in Washington and Christian Parker in Dallas. Also, just do you have any of the same sense that I do that Philadelphia might be in a position to finally take a step back a little bit? Paulie, go ahead.
Hell to the W, big guy.
Yes,
how you doing, man?
I'm well. How are you?
All right. I'm doing well, man. Beautiful day. It's a beautiful day in the
It's
neighborhood.
gorgeous today. No humidity. Felt
Yes,
really
it is.
cool early this morning. Yes.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
We don't usually talk about the weather. Paulie and I usually get right to it, but a little small talk before we get started. Go ahead.
Sheehan loves the weather. But,
I do love the weather, but not necessarily talking about the weather in July. But go ahead.
Right. All right. I'm gonna say this much. I got the Giants coming up in 4th place on both sides of the ball. All right, so I'll start there. Deep offense coming in the 3rd spot. I got us coming in the 3rd spot on offense, man. Too many unknowns. Unknown with the OC, unknown with the running game. Unknown with the wide receivers, unknown with the offensive line. With the center position. This is my opinion. Coming in 2nd, I got the Cowboys. Coming in 1st, I got the Eagles, man. The Eagles still got the best offensive line in the division. And
they do.
Eagles, in my opinion, they still got the best running back in the division, the Saquon Barkley. And they got solid backup running backs. So
yeah, they do.
Give me Eagles at 1, Dallas at 2.
Okay.
Defense, give me Eagles at 1. All right. I like us at 2. And I got Dallas coming in at 3, man. I think we finally got a scheme that's going to fit the players that we have. I think our front 7 is going to be way improved. And Dallas, I don't know, man. I think Dallas, they play too much Madden when it comes to their roster, and that's what I see on defense with them. Names don't mean production. So that's how I got that going. As far as the Eagles taking a step back, man, I don't care if the Eagles take a step back. I really don't think they will take a step back. I think they're going to be one of the competitive teams in the league. And I'm not scared of the Eagles. I'm not scared of any of these teams in our division. But I'm definitely not scared of the Eagles, just off of the fact when we know what happened with us last year. But you take it back to 24, the only difference between us and the Eagles and why we couldn't dethrone them was our defense. That's it. That is it. And our defense was a step better than it was last year. Now, that's not saying a lot. But at 24, we did get some big stops when we needed to get some big stops, and we got some big turnovers when we needed to get it. So now we're looking at a more consistent and aggressive defense. So, like I said, I could care less if the Eagles take a step back or not. I don't think they will, but, I want to beat the best. And in my mind, the only difference between us and 24 was our defense. If we had a mediocre defense in 24, I believe we would have dethroned them. So, I'll take that off the air.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was obviously the difference in the NFC Championship game. Clearly, we could not stop them. They could name the number. They got 55, and if they had needed 70, they would have gotten 70 against us defensively. I would also add
all 3 games.
Yeah,
I would also that was the problem, man.
I would also add that they had a lot of experience in the postseason, and our team was there for the first time, although by the time we got to the title game, we had won 2 games on the road. We needed to win the turnover battle +4 rather than them winning it +4 like we did in the Detroit game the week before. I just look at Philadelphia offensively, and I've got question marks. I hear you on the offensive line, but you got some injuries on that offensive line coming back, and so you got to hope that it's healthy again, because it wasn't healthy last year. And then it's a big question mark, the fit between Sean Mannion and Jalen Hurts. Bottom line, that's going to be critical for Philadelphia this year.
Yeah, but you always can lean on Saquon Barkley. And he's
you can behind a big-time offensive line. And I actually think the running scheme that you'll likely see with a Mannion attack will fit Barkley. And so maybe it turns out that they are just a run-heavy team that beats the hell out of everybody up, with their defense. And that would certainly be good enough, more likely than not. But I'm not afraid of Philadelphia at all. In fact, I just have a feeling there's just something there that's run its course. It feels like Sirianni's run its course. It feels like Jalen Hurts has run its course. And maybe even a guy like Saquon Barkley has run the course. And it just feels like, look, here are their last 5 straight playoff seasons and 4 straight double-digit win seasons with 2 Super Bowl appearances and a Super Bowl win. And then they started to make some changes last year, obviously the big one being trading A.J. Brown. All right, let me roll.
I'm not saying you scared of him. I'm saying I've heard a lot of people on this station almost, wishing for Philly not to be good, and maybe we have a chance of Philly not. I don't care if Philly is good or if Philly is bad.
Look, if Jaden's healthy for 17, we're going to be a competitive team. We're going to win more games than we lose. And we've already proven with him at quarterback, even against a Vic Fangio defense, twice we move the ball up and down the field against him. We'll see what happens.
As a rookie. Hail to the W, big guy.
Yeah. Ian, go ahead.
I have Washington's offense third. I have Washington's defense fourth. And while I do agree with you that I don't believe in Nick Sirianni, I feel they are winning in spite of him, not because of him. I don't see the talent is too greatly assembled by Roseman for them to take a significant step back. Could I see them making the playoffs and them losing early and Sirianni being gone because it's stale, like you said? Yes. But I think the talent is too great for them to not make the playoffs.
Just looking at them. So obviously they open up with us, then they're at Tennessee, and then they're at Chicago on a Monday night, and then they get the Rams and Jacksonville for back-to-back home games. Actually, I'm sorry, the Jacksonville game is a London game. We play them both games in the first half of the season. Opener there, a Sunday nighter on November 1st here. Yeah, I look. They're an interesting team. Your Howie Roseman comment, and I partly think that you threw it out there just as a dig towards Adam Peters, but that's fine. That may be my sensitivity to it. He is great, and he has continually played chess to everybody else's checkers, pretty much in the league. And they consistently have a very talented team. And by the way, talented in the trenches. They're just something that doesn't feel right about them entering this season. It didn't feel right last year, during a big portion of the season last year for the Eagles. And I don't know, Sirianni has had a nice run. Everybody there loves him. There's a disconnect with the way the outside world views Nick Sirianni and inside the walls of that building in Philadelphia, or the way they view in Montgomery County or wherever they are. Where are they? In Philly, their headquarters, Bucks County maybe. But I just think that there's a chance we're seeing Sirianni leave at 2-4 at some point, or at 3-5. Feels like that kind of a year.
Fired in season?
Yeah, maybe. And Victor, look, they've got a former head coach on the staff in Fangio.
I think there's a greater chance Dan Quinn is fired in season more than Nick
Sirianni I know you do.
is fired in season.
Yeah, that's not a surprise from you. Yeah, no, I agree. I bet you the odds are higher on Quinn getting fired in season than Sirianni. I bet you, by the way, neither one of them gets fired in season, because I think that's the way both organizations would approach it. But I think there's a better chance Quinn's here in 27 than Sirianni is in Philadelphia. Thank you, Ian. Let's go to Athen. Athen, go ahead.
I think the Eagles regress, one, because I'm not big on Jalen Hurts. I think he's had everything perfect around him for a long time. You take away A.J. Brown, you have an unproven rookie wide receiver, and then they've lost some pieces on defense and Blankenship and Dean and some others. I just see the overall regression, because when the head coach allows somebody to read books on the sidelines, and then he's constantly in the media complaining about the quarterback and not getting the ball and all that, and that's allowed, the team notices it. It's no different than being in management and business, and you allow somebody to do something over and over. Yeah, that person's gone, but they were a huge part of the team, and you take away one of Jalen's big weapons, and now you're replacing it with unproven players like the rookie and some others. I just see the Eagles finishing third, if not fourth, in the division this year. I think it could be a really big step back year for them.
I actually like Jalen Hurts, and I have liked Jalen Hurts. And I think Jalen Hurts going from, Shane Steichen to Brian Johnson to Kellen Moore to Kevin Patullo and now to Sean Mannion, this is part of what he's just dealt with as a quarterback going back to Alabama, Alabama, and then obviously Oklahoma, and now in the league. I do think that Jalen Hurts is better as a dual threat quarterback, as a true dual threat quarterback. I think he can throw the football. I think he's been, when they've asked him to really deliver as a pocket passer, he has. But more often than not, he's played it more, I think, with cerebral sort of, intellect, because their defense has been so great and he hasn't wanted to blow the games. And it's kind of been the way they've gotten after it. But when we go back to key games, even last year, there were key games down the stretch against the Chargers on a Monday night where he needed to throw the football to keep them in it. They ended up losing that game, but he looked good throwing the football. You go back to obviously the previous year when he had to get it done not only against us, but the Rams the week before in the snow, the Super Bowl against the Chiefs that they lost. He was better than Mahomes that day. I like Jalen Hurts. I just wonder whether or not this is going to be the right fit. We'll see. Sean Mannion, I think, has a chance to be a great offensive coordinator. And like Blau, people have been talking about Mannion for a while now. Mannion is a big old dude. I mean, he's 6'5". He was a good quarterback at Oregon State. I actually thought that he had a chance to be a decent NFL quarterback when he came out. But he's, gone through it as a coach. He's been in the best places, as a coach. He's been with Matt LaFleur. He's been with Kevin O'Connell. He's been in that room as a backup quarterback with Kirk Cousins a few years ago. So he's been with the guys that right now own the league offensively as coaches and coordinators. Is Jalen Hurts the right fit for that? I don't know. I think Jaden Daniels is the perfect fit for what they're going to try to do with him. We'll see.
For offense, I have Dallas, Washington, Philly, and the Giants. And then for defense, I still have Philly as the best, but I have us moving up into the second spot and the Giants third and the Dallas fourth. But I will say overall, I don't think it's going to be a huge gap between all of our defenses, between the four teams like there was last year. And I think the Dallas defense and the Washington defense is so much improved that Philly, that's where they go from first in the division down to possibly third, if not fourth, because they're going to be close games. But I just see Dallas and Washington and even the Giants elevating this year, and Philadelphia hopefully going down the tubes.
Thanks for the call. 2 years ago, it was becoming so obvious watching the Eagles that, A, they were among the best coached defenses in the NFL, which Fangio's defenses have been now for a decade plus, and that they just had some absolute game wreckers, at almost every level. And they still do have that. This is a very talented team defensively. They still have their defensive coordinator. Fangio almost retired after last year, but he's coming back again. Didn't want to retire with a first-round playoff loss, and he's back. And look, defense is variable, much more variable, in terms of year to year, and sometimes there's no real reason why a dominant defense becomes average the next year or an average defense becomes dominant the next year. But all you got to do is look at their players, man. I mean, they have monsters up front in Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter. On the next level, they've got Grenard, who they added. I wanted Washington to add Grenard. They've got Zach Bond. They've got the kid last year, Jahad Campbell. They've got Hunt. Then their secondary has Mitchell and Cooper DeJean, and they added Reek Woolen to that secondary. Remember, they still have Nolan Smith. They've got the kid and the other safety that they have that they got last year. I'm forgetting. Oh, Ringo. They've got him in the secondary. This is the most loaded defense in the league, unless Aaron Donald returns, and then you could point to the Rams potentially. But the division, I think, is going to be tough for them. I think the conference is going to be very tough for them. I mean, that's the thing, man. The NFC, when you just think about it, and it started to get this way last year when Seattle emerged and the Rams emerged, and then and you had the 49ers banged up but still winning games, and then you had the Bears emerging. Man, there are a lot of good teams in the NFC, a lot of really good teams in the NFC. Even the NFC South, and the Carolina Panthers lost Nick Scarton yesterday. Big loss defensively for them. But Tampa should bounce back. I like the Saints. This year a lot. Will Detroit bounce back? They certainly have the horses to bounce back. Green Bay is solid, both sides of the ball. Minnesota's a big question mark. I was never a J.J. McCarthy guy. You guys know that if you were listening before that 24 draft. I just never got it that he was a first-round pick. I think Kyler Murray's going to get the first opportunity there, right? Kyler Murray in the Kevin O'Connell offense. I mean, if Kevin O'Connell gets Kyler Murray to play at a high level like he did Sam Darnold, I mean, you can't let Kevin O'Connell go if you're in Minnesota. There's been talk about this is like a massive year for Kevin O'Connell. Like they got to be in the playoffs. They got to win a playoff game. What he did with Darnold was amazing. If he does the same thing with Kyler Murray, you just can't get rid of a guy like that. He is a quarterback whisperer. O'Connell is. All right. Brandon Ayuk is apparently going to become a resident of the DMV. Depends on what you define as the DMV. Also, there was news yesterday as it relates to Anthony Davis. Those things coming up next. All of our football coverage on the Team 980 is presented by Xfinity. Score the most reliable Wi-Fi, one price, 5 years, guaranteed. Xfinity, imagine that. So Brandon Ayuk claims that he has purchased a $10 million property in Loudoun County. That would be Loudoun County, Virginia. The same county where Redskins Park or Commanders Park is located. He put out a photo, a two-part photo of himself and then himself with his real estate agent. Brandon Ayuk acquires $10 million Loudoun County, Virginia estate, and thank you to his real estate agent. Loudoun County, by the way, he spelled incorrectly, or whomever put that together for him spelled it incorrectly. I don't know what it means. I'll be honest with you. I'm really to the point where I have gotten over him completely. He's not playing for Washington unless he gets reinstated and goes on a major reputation repair tour. I mean, never say never because he's got talent, a lot of it. But I just don't see it happening. I think this guy moving into Loudoun County without yet applying for reinstatement, without taking the kind of action, someone who is espousing a desire to play here and hasn't figured out or is too afraid to take the actions necessary to make that happen. That's the biggest red flag out of all of them, is that this guy's a talker, not a doer. He's talented, really talented. George Kittle was on Chris Sims's podcast, and he was asked by Sims to talk about the Brandon Ayuk 49ers situation. This is what Kittle said.
Speaking of some maybe bad apples or something like that, Brandon Ayuk, right?
What do you want to know?
Well, are you guys like a little shocked about this turn he's taken there? I mean, you've known him. He was a teammate. Is the locker room, the guys a little bit like, hey, what the hell's going on with Brandon Ayuk right now with some of these Instagram posts he's doing?
Well, a majority of this has come like during the summer break. So I literally got back to the building yesterday, and I have not seen anybody or heard anybody talk about it.
Okay, all right.
I would say in general, I feel like I know basically everything that's happened and what's gone on, and I can't share all of that because it's not my business to share or tell.
Yeah.
But I just want to let you know that I feel like the Niners have done a very good job throughout the entire process and have tried. Kyle has tried. John has tried.
Yes.
Teammates have tried. And this is where we are.
Yeah.
And so I think the organization itself,
I
think the organization itself has done a really good job. And like I said, I know plenty of things, and I don't ever want to single out a player. I don't ever want to point a finger at anybody, but I've been here for 10 years and I've been treated with nothing but respect and love my entire career. I feel like I've done it the right way as long as I can. Contract negotiations are those are all always hard for everybody.
Yeah.
And you just try your best to not be sensitive about it. But I will say, Richard Sherman gave me like advice back in the day when I was going through my first contract negotiation. It was contracts are like braces. They hurt and they suck the entire time. And then once you get your braces off and you get paid, you don't even remember having them. And it's a great time. Like that's kind of the mindset you have to have. And if you get offended by something, you hold on to it. That's kind of on you because everybody goes through contract negotiations and they're all difficult.
Yeah. Well said. And I, like you, get
George Kittle. I mean, I loved when he said, I don't ever want to point the finger at anybody. I don't want to single out anybody. But that's exactly what he did with Brandon Ayuk. When he said, I know plenty of things about this situation. And Kyle has tried, and John, as in John Lynch, has tried. Teammates have tried, and yet this is where we are. And it's, he started off by saying, I feel like I know basically everything that's happened and what's going on, and I can't share all of it because it's not my business to share or tell. But the 49ers have done a good job. This is the other part of it. I still know some of you who reach out to me to say, yeah, it's going to happen. And this guy's not crazy. He's the one that's, incredibly brilliant with strategy. Nobody near him, teammates, former teammates, podcasters in the market, media people in the market, no one has taken his side. Nobody has. Bill Barnwell from ESPN next. All right, joining me right now is ESPN's Bill Barnwell, one of my favorites to have on the show, at Bill Barnwell on X. You know, only you, only you could create a 53-man roster made up of only backup players. That was brilliant, the thing that you had the other day. But I actually want to start with this. You came up with compensation value for players, key players around the NFL. And I think, I think one of the hardest conversations we have as sports fans, and the thing that we get wrong the most, is when we get into conversations about trade value. Like, well, if you dealt, for us in this past offseason, if you traded Deron Payne, you could probably get a day 3 pick or a day 2 pick. And we're always wrong on that. I kind of feel that way. Do you feel that way, by the way, that that's always a hard thing? Because it's really about supply demand, and you don't know how it'll play out if that player becomes available.
It's always what is someone willing to pay you for it, right? It's art basically.
Yeah.
And we could sit here and say, okay, this is what history says this guy is worth. But I'll tell you what, last year I did this column. I did not have Quinn Williams as worth a first-round pick because history told me, well, guys in their late 20s, defensive tackles, about to sign their third contract, they don't get first-round picks. And then Jerry Jones woke up and said, you know what? I'm sick of watching this defense. I'm going to give up what it takes to get Quinn Williams. And that impacted the rest of the market.
Right.
Dexter Lawrence went for a first-round pick when I don't know that he would have 12 months earlier. And so we're just sort of trying to capture, okay, what does the league tell us about players, how they value guys? But at the end of the day, all it takes is one owner to change that. to totally change what teams are asking for and what teams are actually getting for players when it comes to the trade market.
So Bill's column from last week focused on players that are worth first-round picks, and he went team by team and told you how many players on the team were actually worth first-round picks. And then, by the way, how many first-round picks. And I'll mention, because I went through your whole thing, Josh Allen's worth 7 first-round picks. No team's actually going to give that up for him, but it was a way right for you to express his value versus another quarterback's value in terms of picks.
Yeah, and this is, by the way, this is not like if you called up the Bills tomorrow with 7 first-round picks, they'd say, well, okay, we don't need a quarterback.
Right.
Obviously, they're not going to do it for any number of first-round picks, but this is more just kind of like the Myles Garrett situation in Cleveland and the Micah Parsons situation in Dallas last year of, hey, the moment you decide, actually, we're ready to move on, what's a fair offer once you're ready to do that? The Bills are not trading Josh Allen for any number of first-round picks, but if they did, I would say 7 first-round picks or, players who combine to be worth 7 first-round picks. That's the kind of deal it would take, something completely unprecedented because teams don't trade a Josh Allen.
All right, so the reason for bringing this up with you is we can just go back to the 2024 draft. Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, Drake May. So share with everybody the order in which you think the player would generate the most value in return.
So my recollection was I had it May, Caleb, Daniels. Is that correct?
Correct. You had Drake May worth 6 first-round picks, Caleb Williams worth 4 first-round picks, and Jaden worth 3 first-round picks. So tell me why the order would be that, and really the difference between Jaden and Drake May would be so significant.
Yeah, so I think the reason Jaden is not at the same level has something to do with talent. It has nothing to do with the impact he's had on the field. I think it's just a question of durability, right? I mean, Jaden Daniels came into the NFL with plenty of people impressed with his talent and plenty of people concerned he was too light or too little or too marginal to thrive as an NFL quarterback because he was so small. And last year we saw, kind of the concerns reaffirmed in some cases. And so we don't really have those concerns about Caleb Williams. We don't have those concerns about Drake May. We'll see if those guys stay healthy for their entire careers. They've been healthy so far as pros. So I think that's really the difference. When it comes to production, obviously, Jaden Daniels has been more productive than than Caleb Williams. And you could argue the situation was worse for Caleb Williams. I don't know if that's fair to say last year, but you sort of run into this question of, okay, how many teams would be interested? With Drake May, any team that doesn't have a quarterback would be interested. With Caleb Williams, I still think there's people so impressed with his college tape and kind of the highs of what we saw last year that I think every team that doesn't have a quarterback would be interested. With Jaden Daniels, no denying the talent of the production, but I do think those concerns about can we keep him healthy, can he keep himself healthy, would keep some teams from maybe not being as aggressive going after him. That's why I had him right below Caleb Williams.
Gotcha. I think that is the obvious answer when it comes to Jaden. Are you, as you view Washington, is that your number one concern, him playing? Because he barely played last year. You and I have had that conversation before. It's remarkable to me how many people, Bill, evaluate Jaden's season as a regression season or a step back season as if he actually played football. He played in 4 games start to finish, and in 2 of those games didn't have anybody out there with him. But beyond that, what is your view of the injury risk and then how you see his 3rd season playing out?
I love Jaden Daniels. To be clear, when I'm doing those trade evaluations, that is what I think the league thinks.
I know that. Exactly.
I had Lamar Jackson.
Yes.
Right. I'm saying for the listener, Lamar Jackson, right. I had him, I think, at 2 first-round picks, even though I think Lamar Jackson is a Hall of Famer, and I would happily give up 2 first-round picks and more to get Lamar Jackson if I were running a football team and had that opportunity. But when it comes to Jaden Daniels, I think he's a phenomenal football player. I think the poise is so important for him, the consistency, the ability to beat the blitz. His impact as a runner on design runs and on scrambles is incredibly valuable. I think he's a really smart player in terms of how he does protect himself, necessarily taking hits unnecessarily at times. Something like Lamar Jackson, I think, is a genius at avoiding those the vast majority of the time. But the big question to me, and we talked a little bit about this, is the fit of Jaden Daniels in David Blau's offense. And this idea of we're going under center, it's going to be, turning your back on the defense and running play action off of that. Like, that is a great fit for a Jared Goff, for example. It's not a great fit for a Jaden Daniels. He might be so talented that he is a great fit for it. And it might be a situation where week one, we're sitting here and he looks brilliant and it's a great move. Like, you're sitting here, it might take 6 weeks for that to work. It might not work at all over the entire season. It's one of the more fascinating situations in the entire league. This idea of we're taking a quarterback who was thriving when healthy over his first 2 years, running a very specific and very consistent kind of offense to what he ran in school, and now changing it almost entirely to a more pro-style offense and seeing if that unlocks something more out of him. A lot of teams want to take what a quarterback did in college or what they did early in their career and stick with it. And the Commanders are making a very big bet that they're actually better off doing something entirely different. And I find that so fascinating because it's so different than how maybe other teams would approach the same situation.
Are you concerned, like many fans of the team are, about the supporting cast offensively around him?
I am, but I think, certainly it seems like other people are. I know I am. I'm just sort of penciling in this idea that they're going to get somebody else. This idea of whether it's Brandon Ayuk or Stephon Diggs or this sort of a secondary receiver for this offense. It does feel like at the end of the day, I'd be really shocked if we got to week one and there was not another receiver in the building. I don't know who that guy is yet, but on paper, as it's currently constructed, unless Antonio Williams is a really impressive rookie, or unless they do lean into more 12 or 13 and Chicago turns out to be, kind of a primary receiving tight end, it feels lacking. And this is, again, especially for a quarterback who is still on a rookie deal, making a relative bargain in terms of what he would cost. I think the vast majority of great quarterbacks on rookie deals have had more around them at receiver at this point of their careers than Jaden Daniels does on paper right now. But again, we're still, 45 or so days away from the start of the season, and I'd be surprised if there was not another addition between now and then.
All right, well, let's talk about that. I mean, we've been we were consumed with it for a few weeks, but I think I believe, Bill, that if we go back a month and a half before the video series, the Netflix series starring Brandon Ayuk began, I actually think that there was major interest from Washington. I'd be surprised if there's interest now. What do you think about Ayuk to Washington? Do you still consider that a possibility or not?
It does feel like an accurate representation of the situation. It felt inevitable that this was going to happen. And now, through Brandon Ayuk's own maneuvering, whatever you want to say about them, it would seem surprising to me. And with all these situations in football, these guys aren't always necessarily choir boys. They aren't necessarily, the easiest to handle behind the scenes. Wide receivers more so than most other positions. But we saw it with the A.J. Brown situation in Philadelphia, right? A.J. Brown had been sort of complaining here and there about his opportunities. But when the Eagles were winning, they didn't really seem to care. It was, hey, we'll make it work next week. We could win even though we're going to focus on you in a given week. When A.J. Brown didn't have the best year last year and the Eagles struggled, it suddenly was a bigger problem and it led to them making a move. With Ayuk, if he was coming off of a 1,500-yard season and he looked like he was the best receiver in football, I think the Commanders would be treating this as an entirely different situation. But coming off of an ACL, we haven't seen him in over a year. He, was inconsistent early on in his career with the Niners. It wasn't like Al Shanahan always saw him as, an essential piece of that offense. They even benched him early in his sophomore season. I think that combination and what's happened publicly just adds up to a situation that the Commanders feel like, why are we going to rush into this? Deebo Samuel is still out there. Stephon Diggs is still out there. It's kind of telling when Stephon Diggs is out there and you think he's going to be much less of a headache than Brandon Ayuk, but that's probably where the Commanders find themselves now. It's just, we have other options. We don't have to go through this for a player we don't even feel that confident it's going to be a real difference maker. So I agree with you. It felt like this was inevitable, and now it feels like I'd be almost surprised if it did happen. Although I still think if it does happen for anybody, the Commanders would still be the favorite.
Give me the better chance. They enter the season against Philadelphia on September 13th with a group of receivers from the roster as it exists now, or with an addition. And if the answer is addition, who's the addition?
I would say the addition side is my favorite, and I think the addition side of things, even if I think Stephon Diggs or Deebo Samuel are the favorites, I do think in the big picture, it's more likely to be someone who is on another roster at the moment. If there's going to be guys who get squeezed at the end of training camp, might be a good fit. Someone like a Cedric Tillman, for example, with the Cleveland Browns, or a Pop Douglas with the New England Patriots, where those guys are going to be fourth, fifth options, don't play special teams or don't play special teams very often, where those guys are going to be concerned for their roster spots, and they still might be valuable number 2, number 3 receivers for a team in the right role. I think about a couple of years ago where the Commanders went out and who did they get from the
Noah Brown? Noah Brown very late.
Noah Brown.
Yeah,
they got Noah Brown, who was kind of the same situation. Had impressed a little bit with the Texans, but had his roster spot squeezed by the Texans getting Stephon Diggs and a couple other players. He comes on, and he wasn't an essential player for them, but he did have some catches here and there. So I would expect that sort of move, maybe more than a Diggs. But I do think at the end of the day, there's going to be someone coming into this building, because I just think there's, they planned this roster. You have to imagine for most of the year thinking, okay, we're leaving a spot in the lineup open for Ayuk. So if it's not Ayuk, there is that spot they need to fill before the start of the season.
The two names that you mentioned are interesting. They're obviously two different players. Demario Douglas actually played really well in New England last year and had a couple of very good playoff games as well for them. But he's obviously a smaller slot guy, where Cedric Tillman, for those of you who don't know, has played in Cleveland for 3 years, drafted 3 years ago, and he's a big target. But that does, the way you sort of laid it out, that makes more sense to me. And look, they could end up with, injuries or concerns more so than now that would also prompt that. So, yeah, interesting. So let's real quickly, I want to go around the league with you. And I want to start with this. And you're the guy that would be able to somehow quantify this. But my gut tells me that the Rams roster on paper heading into this season, especially if Aaron Donald returns, might be one of the best and most complete rosters we've ever seen before an NFL season. Do you think that there's a way to quantify that? Do you have the same gut feel about it?
I do and I don't. I mean, I think at certain positions, defensive line, it's one of the deepest I've ever seen. At receiver, it's excellent.
Right.
With Devontae Adams as the number 2 option. The offensive line is okay. Not terrible by any means, but not, a 2024 Eagles level offensive line. The secondary is much improved, but there's not necessarily a, Pat Surtain level cornerback. Here's how I would quantify it. And this is what I found interesting is I went and looked at every team going back to the, I think, 1990s and their Super Bowl odds heading into the season. And I adjusted for, the Vegas, the sports book, wherever it was calculated. I got this from Pro Football Reference.
Yeah, sure.
And the Rams, this year's Rams are the favorites, which shouldn't be surprising to anyone. They're only the 30th most significant favorite to win a Super Bowl going back to 1994. So they're favorites, but they're not like overwhelmingly dominant favorites the way that the mid-90s 49ers teams were, according to their Super Bowl odds, or even your typical Patriots team over, kind of the peak of the Brady dynasty over that 15-year span. And so I do think there's, as talented as the roster is, and there's no question it's talented, if they didn't make the playoffs, I think we'd be able to sit here right now and say, okay, well, Matthew Stafford got hurt.
Yeah, of
and
course.
Ty Simpson wasn't ready, or the offensive line was banged up, or the pass rush was great, but the secondary was inconsistent. Or most realistically, just that division is so good that the Rams were a 2 seed or a 3 seed, and they got a road playoff game in the conference championship game and lost because, the Eagles had a much easier schedule, or the Packers had an easier schedule, or something like that seems like it's entirely possible to me. So, I mean, the roster, no question, it is incredible, but they're favorites, but they're not even.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's really interesting. They're
generational.
Yeah, that's something that's sort of been on my list to go back and check through the Pro Football Reference preseason Super Bowl odds. I love looking at some of that stuff. And look, I mean, as we know, it's the NFL. What it looks like on paper doesn't mean anything. And, last year, New England and Seattle had over-under totals of 7.5, and no one was expecting them to end up where they end up. I mean, this league, as you know, is really it's week to week, let alone year to year. Do you remember? You said some of those Patriots teams, so I'm going to say, even though they lost the Super Bowl, that the 2008 Patriots must have been a massive favorite. Maybe some of the Chiefs teams here recently. You mentioned some of the 49ers teams. I would bet you the Redskins in 92 were a pretty prohibitive favorite. The Bears in 86 must have been a prohibitive favorite. So what was, do you remember the biggest favorite when you went back and looked at it?
Yep. 2008 Patriots.
2008 Patriots.
Were the biggest favorite.
Yeah.
And Kevin, do you remember what happened to the 2008 Patriots?
Yeah. Brady got hurt.
They lose their quarterback.
Yeah.
They lose their quarterback.
And still won 11 games.
They still won 11 games, but that year they lost to a Dolphins team that had gone 1-15 the prior season.
Yeah.
That would have been impossible.
Right.
And that is exactly what happened. Patriots always Patriots were the top favorite, and then I think it was like 4 consecutive Niners teams from the mid-90s.
Wow.
And that's probably when people talk about the roster being so dominant, the Niners and the Cowboys, those early 90s teams, right when the salary cap was becoming a thing, people didn't really know how it worked, but they were able to kind of exploit it. It was easier to get guys into free agency than it is now. Those two teams to me stand out as oh no, those were the most talented teams I have seen over the past 35 years, just because the rules were a little different. The Rams, they're not at that level because they have a cap to deal with. They aren't quite as all in as maybe those teams were. They didn't have quite as much of an advantage to build upon, with the Cowboys did with all those draft picks from the Herschel Walker era, and the Niners with, I think, having a real significant, advantage with Bill Walsh and George Seifert there. But they're as talented as any team I can think of during this, sort of current era of football with the current cap rules. And again, Vegas, or people betting in Vegas, still think that implies 7 times out of 8 they're not going to win the Super Bowl.
Look, I thought they were the best team in the league last year, and special teams killed them in the Thursday night game late in the year in Seattle, and then again in the NFC Championship game. But again, it's the NFL. We have no idea how it will actually manifest itself. But defensively, to add Myles Garrett, potentially get Aaron Donald back, and add Trent McDuffie to an already talented group, even though they lose Jared Verse. And then we know what they have at wide receiver and at quarterback. And I've been a Kyron Williams fan for a while. I think he is a really good back. All right. What about Kansas City and Mahomes? Will he be ready for that opening Monday night game against Denver? Are they expecting Mahomes to be the quarterback for 17 games, or will it be later?
I do think right now, if you ask them secretly, truth serum involved, they would say yes. They'd be nervous. I think they're approaching it as if that is going to be the case. But we've seen this with so many ACL injuries over the years. You cannot count on a quarterback to be his normal self coming from an ACL tear, especially with this compressed of a time frame. And you normally see quarterbacks fail passes because they're not planting as well. They're nervous about traffic around their feet. And when you have a quarterback who is so incredibly dependent on creating out of structure, scrambling to create plays the way Patrick Mahomes has in years past, that's going to make things even more difficult. And so I do think that led to the Kenneth Walker edition, where they knew, okay, we have to invest in our running game. We have to create more explosive. Their last explosive run rate on design runs over the past 2 seasons by a significant margin. They had backs who could get, when you needed 2, they could get 2. When you needed 8, they could also get 2, and that's not necessarily the most helpful thing to have when you have a quarterback coming off a knee injury. So I do think that offense early in the season, even if Mahomes is there, it's going to be more run-driven than it's been in years past, or more play-action-driven, kind of more about, trying to create answers for Mahomes that aren't going to be, as intensive for him in terms of being a creator. As the year wears on, he's a competitor. Like, I think at the end of the day, when you have big plays or big moments, we've seen him in years past when he had high ankle sprains, right? Like,
Yeah.
Just a scramble all game, and then it's third in the Super Bowl, and he's going to scramble for a first down. I don't think he's ever going to be able to turn that off, but I do think they approach this year expecting something less than the usual Mahomes early in the season. I think he'll be on the field, but I do think it's going to be a lot of Kenneth Walker early in the year.
Back to the NFC East, you talked about, the David Blau fit with Jaden Daniels. Well, Sean Mannion is certainly going to overhaul that offense and put Jalen Hurts under center a lot more than he's been during his career. How do you think that fit will work?
Not well, if I'm being completely honest when it comes to the passing game. I don't think that plays Jalen Hurts' strength. I think it takes him out of the quarterback run game, and I think that's something that he added significant value with his legs, on design runs over the past 5 or 6 years. The only difference is with the Eagles, I do think the run game is going to work with the zone running scheme and Saquon Barkley and the great offensive line. I think they're going to be able to run the ball really effectively, and so that's going to make life easier for Jalen Hurts and not put him in obvious passing situations quite as often. The Commanders, I'm hopeful, good offensive line. I think Jacoby Krosky-Merritt was underrated last year as a pure runner. Like Rashad White's a solid player, a solid rotational back. But they don't have a Saquon Barkley. They don't have a Lane Johnson in the life that. They don't have the same caliber of talent throughout the run game. And so I think the Eagles version is more likely to work for reasons unrelated to the quarterback, even if I think Jaden Daniels is a better passer than Jalen Hurts, which, to be clear, I do.
All right, I'll finish up with this. Rather than getting your Super Bowl pick on July 23rd, give me a team out of each conference that you just have a really good hunch that will end up being much better than most people will end up predicting them to be.
Oh, boy. Okay. In the NFC, I'll throw out the Giants, where I'm counting on a coaching upgrade. I think the defense is really stacked. I think not sure I'm as high on Jackson Dart as most Giants fans are, but I do think Jackson Dart can be a competent quarterback. They haven't had a lot of their key pieces because of injuries at times over the past 2 years in terms of the offensive line, which I think is deeper. And at the end of the day, I really believe in John Harbaugh. I think there's a real significant coaching upgrade that was made here. So I'm not saying they're going to win the Super Bowl, but I could see them being kind of a surprise playoff team over on the NFC side of the things. And then on the AFC side of things, something I read in the the FPN Football Almanac recently, formerly the Football Outsiders Almanac, which I contributed to many years ago, they had the Houston Texans as the favorites to win the AFC and make it to the Super Bowl. And that doesn't seem popular. Not like people are talking at the Texans right now, but the more I thought about it, the more I liked it in terms of what C.J. Stroud did in the regular season before all the playoff stuff happened, in terms of the upgrades they've made on the offensive line. Obviously, the defense is incredible. And they play in a relatively easy division. So people see the Texans, and I think they kind of say, okay, we know what they are. They're a team that's going to win one playoff game and then kind of settle and falter from there. I do think the Texans have legitimate Super Bowl upside. I don't know if people are really talking about them that way right now. Maybe I'll throw out the Texans, a different sort of team over in the AFC.
I like that one. I really liked them before the postseason last year to make a super deep run and potentially be in the Super Bowl. And I still think, and I have a feeling we talked about this, if they just hand the ball off and punt in Foxborough, they would have won that game.
Agreed.
Yeah.
No question.
Instead of
letting Drake May was bad in that game too.
Excuse me?
Because Drake May was not good in that game either.
He was terrible throughout the postseason. But they kept dropping C.J. Stroud back, and they kept turning it over, and their defense kept creating opportunities, but they kept giving them back. I loved watching that defense last year. I mean, and they are loaded again this year. Thanks for doing this, as always. Hope you're well, and maybe we'll talk right before the season starts.
Looking forward to it, Kevin. Thanks so much.
Bill Barnwell, everybody from ESPN. LeBron James has made his decision. More on that next. Ben Standig will jump on as well. Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980, and the team980.com. Ben Standig is with us. The breaking news on LeBron James is that he is signing with the Philadelphia 76ers, according to ESPN's Shams Charania. It'll be a 2-year, $8 million contract with a player option that I believe is part of year 2. LeBron James headed to the Eastern Conference and headed to the Philadelphia 76ers. Some of the news that broke yesterday related to the Kevin O'Connor story on Yahoo, where he suggested LeBron was waiting for some sort of resolution to either Kyrie Irving's situation or Anthony Davis's situation. The Wizards have made it very clear they're not trading Anthony Davis unless they were to get an absolute haul for him, and nobody seems willing to offer that. LeBron to the 76ers to join, by the way, of course, Joel Embiid, Paul George, Kelly Oubre, and Jaylen Brown. Is Kelly Oubre back or not? Or did Oubre sign somewhere else? I'm forgetting.
I think he went to Indiana.
He went to Indiana, right. Paul George gone too, obviously. Jaylen Brown, Tyrese Maxey, and Joel Embiid and LeBron James will be the core of the 76ers team. What's your reaction to LeBron to Philadelphia? Where does it put him in the East?
I mean, I would assume, unless the Knicks are just the default team because they just won the title, I would think the Sixers are right there. Some might even say, you just look at the star power and, it's going to be a team that you're easily going to be right there at the top with, again, presumably the Knicks, getting obviously a lot's going to depend on Joel Embiid's health. Once we get to April, May, and June, but on paper to have LeBron, with who at least he has the skill set to slip back a little bit if into the hierarchy if he wants to. I don't know that he wants to, but because of his ability to see the court and all that. With Jaylen Brown, Tyrese Maxey, Edgecombe, obviously have a ridiculously fun starting five. I will just say, in my opinion, I see people going, "Oh my God, he didn't take any money," or "What's going on?" This is so obvious what this is to me. There is no emotional aspect here, right? Because he has no ties to this team or the city. This is a guy who, and we heard Rich Paul say that if the Knicks hadn't won the title, LeBron, that maybe have been his first choice to go there. That seeing the Knicks with Jalen Brunson, what a title did for that Northeast city, passionate fan base that hasn't won a title in forever, turns him into a god. LeBron is about the legacy and the wanting people to, buy into him. That this is an obvious. Yeah, this is an obvious move to say, look, if I could bring a title to Philly, one of those places where, again, they make statues out of fictional boxers, this could be a huge tipping point for me. Fine, I can't do the one-team resume bit that the other guy did, but I can bring joy to cities across the league, and that, to me, is what this is about.
They just moved up to plus 370 to win the Eastern Conference, just behind the Knicks. So they are now the number 2 choice in the East to win the Eastern Conference, followed by Boston, Cleveland, Detroit, and Toronto. The Wizards are still a ways back. But the East is, I started going through it yesterday and thinking about LeBron and where he'd end up, and what if he ended up in Cleveland? What if he ends up in Miami? Teams that kind of just slipped my mind, like Tyrese Halliburton's coming back to Indiana next year. They were in the finals in 2025. Obviously, Kawhi to Toronto makes a big difference. Orlando is a young team with some upside. So was Charlotte. So the East is all of a sudden deep. We'll see. To me, Philadelphia can't win a title without Joel Embiid being healthy during the postseason. It doesn't matter where he is during the regular season. He has to be healthy for, somewhere around, 16 times so that they can get 16 wins in the playoffs. Because without that, I don't see Maxey, Brown, and LeBron winning a title.
Yeah, no, as I said before, it's going to come down to Joel Embiid. In particular, if you're assuming that, if the Spurs are sitting there in the finals and you got to deal with Wembanyama and, the Knicks, Karl Anthony Towns and just in general. And look, that's the thing, right? The Sixers, obviously, the Sixers coming back from a 3-1 series deficit against the Celtics has triggered so much action in this league. It probably gets Jaylen Brown out of Boston to some end, and which then leads to all of this. By the way, maybe you said it before I got on the air. How about Josh Harris? Josh Harris pulling off the Jaylen Brown and now LeBron James acquisitions. That's obviously a huge feather in his cap, regardless of what the motivations were by anybody involved to get there. He's the one, his team is the one that got them all. And, it's going to be a huge deal. I mean, obviously the Sixers are going to be a rock star show all season. And, good for Josh Harris's pocket and maybe for his trophy case if all goes well.
Well, I'd add to that his reputation among Philadelphia 76er fans, which has not been very high. The 76er fan base has not necessarily really been into Josh Harris as the team owner, but obviously they're going all in with this group. But Joel Embiid's the key. I mean, he's got to be healthy. When he's healthy, he is clearly a top 5 player and capable of winning a title, but he hasn't been healthy this time, during the playoffs too much during the course of his career. Yeah. All right. And you still think that the Wizards will roll out Anthony Davis in 2026, 2027? I guess the question is, will they on this first, early day in August with a chance to extend him? Will they? What do you say?
I would say there's never say never about anything in these matters, but I can't comprehend that they're going to give Anthony Davis a max contract. I don't even know that they're giving Anthony Davis a contract beyond what is already on the books because, like the Trae Young deal, the next 2 years don't really matter that much in terms of spending for the Wizards because they don't spending on anybody else. But once you get past the next 2 years, now all of a sudden you're probably looking at having to pay guys like Alex Sarr and Kyson George and so on. So I don't know how much you want to tap Anthony Davis long term, but I also don't see anybody paying Anthony Davis a max contract based on how we just sort of saw this offseason play out around the league, where guys like Jaylen Brown, who were a heck of a player, was worthy of being in the MVP conversation, was shown to have like almost no value around the league in this second apron era because he's good, but he's not necessarily a guy that's going to take you over the top by himself. And it's just way expensive. And Anthony Davis is 33, has missed a ton of games, as we know, in the last several years or really throughout his career. So I don't see him getting a deal. Again,
you don't even see a non-max extension. Is that what you're saying?
I mean, if you tell me that like they come to some agreement where he gets like an extra year or something for like something that's somewhat reasonable. All right. I mean, maybe, but like in terms of like something that's going to be so it's going to hamstring them. That to me would be very surprising.
Yeah. We'll find out next month what the plans are there. Look, I hope that Anthony Davis, if he doesn't get anything added to his current contract, which is, whatever 58 this year and then the player option for next year at 63. I hope he understands that to get that next big max payday, he's got to play some basketball and he's got to play well. Like, part of me, and I don't know why I feel this way about Anthony Davis, because I love Anthony Davis when he's healthy playing and not, playing ouchie with, a toe injury where he misses 5 games because somebody stepped on his toe. But I just hope that if they don't get something done, the motivation to play basketball again, that he understands that that's the way he's going to get the next big deal is by going out there and playing great for the Wizards, at least through the first half of the season, where the trade value could become much more substantial and maybe even interest Washington. Because I'd hate to see, game 3 and somebody knocks knees with him and he's out 3 weeks. And we get into that thing with him, which has happened with him during the course of his career. I mean, he has to play well to get the next big deal. I don't think anybody's just going to hand it to him.
Right. It's kind of what I'm saying. Like, it just doesn't feel like there's anything out there. And again, you can say, well, wouldn't that the argument for Trae Young before the Wizards gave him the deal that they gave him? Well, you can make that argument for sure. I wrote about this the other day about putting context as to what the Wizards were looking at. And at the end of the day, Whether Trae Young is the guy who's going to lead you to a title or not, I would say probably not. He's only 27. He's still in his prime. He's a very good player, and they had nobody at point guard, and they needed a point guard to run the offense when you have all these kids. The goal is to take the kids to the next level. The goal is not build around Trae Young and Anthony Davis, but at least Trae Young is, like I said, point to where they were going to get another point guard that was going to help them, and this is the price they decided to pay. Again, they also had to meet the salary cap floor, blah, blah, blah. I just, with Davis, it just doesn't feel like it's, I mean, I just don't think the calculus is the same because of the age, because of the injury history. But again, if he plays well the first, half of the year, we get close to January, February, maybe some team does come up and say, okay, Anthony Davis looks good. We need him to get over the top. Here's a bunch of picks and some young players or whatever it is to the Wizards, and the Wizards like, okay, well, this is good enough for us. So yeah, he has something to prove, and I'd be surprised if the Wizards decided to pay him substantially in advance before he proves anything. And there's also even just like the basketball aspect, like what does this mean for Alex Sarr with Anthony Davis there? Like how do they fit together? I think both guys can move outside a bit, but obviously they're better off around the rim. How does that fit work? Sarr is part of your future far more than Davis is. So again, you want to extend Davis and maybe muck up Sarr. I don't know if I want to do that. So yeah, there's a lot of obstacles I would think in a way before Davis could get a significant contract.
Ben is with us every Monday and Friday. As most of you know, he is this show's Washington Commanders insider at Ben Standig on X. Ben covers the team via his Substack called Last Man Standig. He also covers the Wizards. All right. So what did you sent me the text last night, and before it gets, I won't get into the details. Bottom line is it does appear as if Brandon Ayuk has purchased a property in Loudoun County. What do you make of that?
I mean, I really have no idea. I mean, I think I may have said this to you when I did the podcast yesterday, but I don't know, maybe I said it to my cat. I don't remember. That like it would be hilarious if this Brandon Ayuk just went and bought all his Commanders gear, and he's putting up all these videos of him in Commanders gear, and the team has no interest. That's buying a couple of things off Fanatics. This isn't buying a multi-million-dollar property somewhere where you don't already live. I don't know, man. I don't think to me this signals anything about what Washington's intentions are. I just think it signals that he is committed to the bit. And he's just
he's committed to the bit, that's for sure. I mean, because based on what we know, he is still not applied for reinstatement to the league. He is still not taken an action that could result, even though it seems like a long shot now, in him actually playing for Washington.
Right, exactly. I mean, this isn't that complicated. I mean, again, that's the thing with the Brandon Ayuk deal. It's yes, there are players in the league who have come back from far more, heinous acts, so to speak.
Michael Vick. I mean, the list goes on and on. Yeah.
I mean,
if you got talent, you're going to get opportunities as long as you take the action to make yourself available.
Right, exactly. I mean, and this is where having an agent and being a professional comes into play, and he's just doing none of the things. And it's not just what we've seen here in the last month or so regarding Washington. There's all the actions going back to last year with the 49ers, that led to San Francisco stripping away a lot of the guaranteed money from his deals because I guess he started skipping rehab assignments and yada, yada, yada. And, he's also, even without an agent, the NFLPA is right there to help his cause. They are here.
Yes,
hey,
they are. That's what they're there for.
Right. What do I need to do to make this work? And they'll say, do this, do this, do this. And he's doing none of these things. So, again, can he help them on the field? I don't know, maybe. But can he help them in the locker room and with what they're trying to accomplish to get to their goals? I just don't see it. We're not seeing anything that would suggest that that's the case. Again, you can do some bad things, some questionable things. I believe in second chances, all that stuff. But you also have to show that you're willing to, follow follow the path of the organization or just normal business. And in this case, he's doing none of those things.
Yeah, and something we've talked about and I mentioned last hour, those that are closest to it, whether it's media or players or former players, and the latest to come out pretty strongly against him is George Kittle, saying that he basically knows what's gone on and what's happened, and he feels like the 49ers have done a very good job throughout the process in handling it. Kyle's tried, he said. John Lynch has tried. Teammates have tried, and yet this is where we are. I mean, look, we don't know much, from these seats that we're sitting in, including all of you listening. But if you just go by what those that are closer to the situation think, not one has taken his side and supported him. Not one, to my knowledge. That typically is a tell if you want to pay attention to it. What if he decides to start showing up for the fan portions of and to be a fan at training camp?
Well, I was already thinking to myself, like, day one, I'm not going to rush to the field. I'm going to hang out in the parking lot and see if we have any sightings of Brandon Ayuk showing up. Look, I mean, I don't know what the rules are. Like, is he still technically on the 49ers? So, like, it's not like you can be on another you can't be with another team and then show up for practice, right? Like, so I don't even know what the rules
I'm just
would
saying,
be.
show up as a fan for the fan related the open practices to fans. I mean, look, I got to be honest with you. I now am really over him. Like, I want the whole thing to go away. I don't want him on our team, and I was a huge Brandon Ayuk fan. And 6 weeks, 7 weeks ago, thought it would happen and would have looked forward to it happening. But I just don't have any patience anymore for somebody who is either too limited or too scared to take action to affect his own outcome. To me, that, along with all of the people that are close to him, that none of those people have supported him, that tells me all I need to know right now. He's going to get another shot at some point if he decides to take action to get back into the league. But I don't really want him as a part of this thing anymore. So I hope there's no disruption with him in Ashburn during training camp.
Well, I think to me, this is where, and we've talked about this for the last several weeks, the rumors have been running wild and, in all kinds of directions, even beyond whatever Ayuk is saying, despite zero comments from Washington in any way, shape, or form. There's nobody has put out a report that Washington is desperate to sign him. Nobody's put out a report that they won't. All that has to have happened here at any point is, if they really are not interested, is just drop a text to somebody off the record, to you or to me or to Schefter or whatever, and say, we are not interested in Brandon Ayuk. And you can tell me that, like, they didn't give a crap. That's not their problem up till this point. If the dude is buying a house here, if this is real, like you're saying, and I think you're right, yeah, it's kind of becoming on your front door. You may want to just say something. What are you going to wait? Like, it's not going to come up on whenever we speak to Adam Peters and Dan Quinn next week. It's going to come up. You're going to answer it. So you're going to wait till like the last second to put out to put out something, or just, what are you going to give us a non-answer? Like, you're going to have to say something. So just say it now if you're not interested. You can't say you're interested. You can say you're not interested.
Right. All right, let's talk about the people that are going to be in training camp and competing. Rookies report today. We are less than a week away from being knee-deep into training camp and training camp battles. I want to focus on the position battles of note. What would you say right now, heading into camp, is the tightest position battle on the team?
Oh, well. Well, there are position battles where it's like, we don't know when Dorrance Armstrong is going to be back exactly, but, let's just say he's ready to go or start a camp or close to it. Like, how much is he going to play versus Owe and Chason? But they're going to play, right? The position where it's like it's all or nothing is like the left guard spot, right? It's Brandon Coleman or it's Chris Paul, and whichever one isn't the guy will be on the bench, until further notice. That to me feels like the most, tight, but also like the most again, black and white situation. I feel like, again, Chris Paul is the one that started the last 15 games of the season. He showed a lot of showed a lot as a pass protector. Obviously, the free agent market was kind of weird based on the hype or the projections that he was going to get a good deal somewhere else. Instead, he comes back here on a pretty modest deal, to say the least. And now, with this new setup in terms of zone blocking, Brandon Coleman is the more athletic guy. He has the bigger potential. If Brandon Coleman became a real left guard, I think that it would really raise the floor and perhaps the ceiling of where this line can go. So I feel like if you gave sodium pentothal to people over there, they would like Coleman to take it, but he's going to have to do it. And that includes, in his case, playing through some injuries, being available, and, cleaning up the work. He's shown more at tackle, I would say, so far in his career than he has at guard. He's played more, but, he wasn't that good in the first 2 games last year. So that, to me, is a really interesting one, because on the surface, you would say, well, Chris Paul should be the favorite, but I still kind of feel like Coleman is the one to beat, but that's what's going to be interesting about this.
Yeah, so I think that's the one that's most obvious, I would say, in terms of a position battle, because if we want to talk about receivers, it's Terry, and then who's the number 2 receiver? Well, I don't know. It could depend on the game. It could depend on what they're trying to do offensively. Are they going to be more 12 and 13 personnel, or are they going to run, the 11 personnel with 3 receivers out there? Are they going to need more of a blocker out there? I don't even know if I would label the other wide receivers as a specific position battle. I think Antonio Williams is going to be on the field. That's other than Terry. That would be the player of the rest of the receivers that right now I feel it's a hunch. It's not comfort level, but it's a hunch that Antonio Williams is going to be on the field more enough that we could certainly call him a player that's out there, game in and game out among the highest snapped wide receivers on the field. What do you? It's kind of hard to define even who would be the number 2. Who's going to be, the other outside wide receiver after Terry? By the way, Terry's going to line up all over the field too.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think we're saying it's pretty much it's at the offensive line, you're starting or you're not starting. Cornerback, for the most part, it's probably going to be 2 guys on the outside, and you flow from there. But at receiver, it's much. And again, this is my optimistic look at what they have in the receiver room. Is that sure? It would be cool if they had an obvious number 2 guy, Monk and Clark, and go from there. But the what they do have is a bunch of guys who could do a bunch of unique things, and they even talked about this back in OTA or minicamp of they try to assemble a receiver room, something akin to an NBA roster, where you don't want everybody kind of doing the same thing. You need guys to be able to have different skill sets, and they have accomplished that. So to the point of who's going to be the number 2, are you playing against a team that you think you can beat deep? Well, then maybe that's a De'Ami Brown game. Are you playing against a team that's got some smaller corners? Well, maybe that's a Treylon Burks game. Is Antonio Williams start to show enough that he, as a route runner, as a really good fit for David Blau's plans? So then maybe he becomes more relevant, and so on and so on. So, I think that's the thing. I think it's almost like their room is more game plan oriented than necessarily one guy is going to emerge as the starter. But, that's why we'll play it out. Antonio Williams is the one guy we haven't seen, right? Even Jalen Lane and Luke McCaffrey are pretty young guys, but in McCaffrey's case, I think a lot of people are already kind of writing it off. And Jalen Lane, we didn't see enough last year at receiver, I think in part because Deebo Samuel was kind of playing where Lane needs to play. So, the young guys are where I would say the hope lies in terms of finding a legit number 2. But ultimately, for this year, it may just come down to the game plan on a given week. And in that case, it's not really a battle directly. It's just which guys does Blau feel most comfortable with using in certain spots.
How comfortable do you think they are with Nick Allegretti as their starting center?
I guess better, pretty darn comfortable considering, they're the ones that created this uncertainty from our perspective, right? I mean, Allegretti is a very solid guy. He's been a center before in his career, played it in college a lot. He's the center position is a lot about smarts as much as it is sort of the physical tools. And I'm not saying that Tyler Biadasz wasn't a smart guy, but I think what goes on between the ears of Allegretti, I think, is one of his strengths as a communicator along the line. When they see things, he's pretty physically stout. And again, if the left guard spot solidifies whichever guy they go, and now you have Sam Cosman on the other side, he's now entering this season fully recovered from the ACL that kept them out half the year last year. The center doesn't have to be necessarily an all-pro. He just needs to, obviously do the basics of that position and help with the line calls and things like that. That's a position where you can kind of get away with a little bit less. So if everything else is working, I think Allegretti should be fine. But yeah, I mean, you would hope that they're pretty confident. They keep talking about a competition for, I have no idea what this competition is. I mean, 6-round picks can play in this league at center, no doubt. But as a rookie, is Matt Gulbin really jumping up that much? I mean, I don't have any sense that that's the case. There's nobody in free agency that's an obvious ad. So yeah, I mean, I would hope that they're feeling pretty good about Allegretti, and I suspect we collectively on the outside won't feel comfortable with it until we actually see it in action.
Talking to Ben Standig, by the way, we didn't mention that. I don't know if there's a competition or not, but there are 2 kickers in camp, Drew Stevens from Iowa and Jake Moody. I would imagine it's Moody's job to lose. Do you think it's more wide open than that or not?
Yeah, I would think it's more wide open. I know when we talked or I spoke with Larry Izzo, the special teams coach, during minicamp, and tell us what's going on here. What this kid Stevens has a huge leg, and Moody, he was successful when he got here. He's had some struggles early in his career. Like, what matters? And he's like, we can talk about big leg all you want. It's all about getting the ball between the goalposts. And if whoever is the most accurate is probably going to take it. But if there's a tie, I kind of feel like it's going to go to the guy with the bigger leg. I mean, kicking from 55 and beyond is becoming much more common in the league these days, and that's something that Jake Moody, I'm not saying he can't make it, but that's not necessarily viewed as a strength of his. Whereas like the Stevens, like you could just see when we would watch them, like kicking in the bubble in particular, like when Stevens was kicking, there's like a real extra whack with the ball, and you can see the distance. So if he's able to be accurate and give you the opportunity to kick from further out, I just feel like that's going to be a tough combo to beat. But yeah, he's going to have to do it. So Moody was 10 of 11 last year, made both his top tries from 50 plus. Adam Peters drafted him with the Niners. Lots of reasons to think he can get it, but I think if it's a tie, I would probably lean towards Stevens.
All right. Next week will be a busy week. By the way, what is the I was looking through my emails from the team. Have they laid out the schedule for Quinn and for Peters to talk next week?
Not officially. They have not. I believe, though, the expectation is there'll be a press conference on Tuesday. So, again, this goes back to sort of the Ayuk thing. Are we just going to wait until that minute before they're going to say anything? But in any event, yeah, Tuesday is the belief. And obviously, unlike last year with the McLaurin deal, there's no sense of any drama happening about players reporting and things like that.
Will it be both Dan and Adam Peters both up there, do you think, with maybe Newmark? Wasn't Newmark up there last year too? Or was that at the end of this past season?
Yeah, no, it would just be Quinn and Peters based on what they've done here in the past. I mean, this is typically, it feels like Adam Peters is more part of our day-to-day lives than he is. I mean, he only really talks, a few times a year, and this is typically one of them, the start of camp. And then after that, we, presumably won't hear from him again until the season's over. So, or, they make a big move perhaps, but even then, I don't know if that would matter. So yeah, this is the Adam Peters show, and hopefully, he's there, and hopefully he gets good questions, and hopefully he's as transparent as he's can be to give us insight into whatever's going on.
I mean, I don't know the league tampering rules, but would he be able to answer the simple question of, can you rule out signing or having interest in Brandon Ayuk if he were to become available? Can he answer that or not?
I mean, I'm not a lawyer here, but I don't. If somebody asks the question, do you want to sign Brandon Ayuk? He'll say, I can't talk about it. He's on another team. If the question is, are you not interested in Brandon Ayuk? I don't see why he couldn't just say yes, right? I mean, like that. That isn't. If you're saying you don't want the guy, how does that impact anybody else? I mean, it impacts Ayuk maybe, but not. It doesn't impact the Niners. You're not messing with them. If anything, it probably helps the Niners, right? So, so I don't see why he could. But again, this is where it honestly it's going to come down to phrasing. When I asked Jaden Daniels about Ayuk back in OTAs, I didn't say, do you want him to come here? I just said, what's your sense of his football future? When Dan Quinn was asked, I think during camp about Ayuk, was more head on, like what can you say about it? And he's like, well, I can't say anything. So phrasing does matter from our end, but I don't see why he can't just say, look, whatever the question is, we are not interested in Brandon Ayuk. I've had him before as a player, good guy, blah, blah, but we've moved on with our group. We feel good about them, and we look forward to seeing the competition play out.
All right. Talk to you on Monday. Thanks.
Yeah, see you.
If you're interested in new windows, I am going to recommend, like I've always done, Window Nation, but especially now because they're offering literally half price on everything you purchase, any window style, and they've got over 1,500 window styles. You're going to get 50% off all your window purchases. Add to that, if you choose to finance the purchase, no money down, no monthly payments, and no interest charged for 2 years. Now, it all starts with something very benign. It's a free in-home estimate. Yes, you've got to be home, but they'll make it convenient for you. It'll take an hour or less. Their person will come through your home. They'll look at every single window in your house, and they'll tell you, these windows need to be replaced because they're inefficient and they're old, and these windows are okay. You'll actually know which windows in your home need to be replaced and which ones are costing you money with higher air conditioning bills and higher heating bills. You replace those windows, and you're going to save big on your utilities year-round. You're saving big for 2 years on those utilities without paying anything for the new windows. And when you start to pay for them, you're not charged interest, and it'll be the year 2028. Window Nation's got over 45,000 five-star reviews on social media. They also have been rated number 1 by Forbes magazine among all window installation companies in America. You can't go wrong with Window Nation, and you don't have to take a big risk. I'm not asking you to commit. I'm asking you to let them come into your home for an hour or less and give you a free estimate. They'll leave you with a quote. They'll leave you alone. You can shop the offer. You're not going to find a better company offering better product for a better price. 866-90-NATION, windownation.com. The NFL Top 100 list has been counting down. We've not really paid attention to it, right? I mean, maybe after the first 10, they're down to what, the 51st best player in the league?
Yeah, we got the top 50 remaining.
Top 50 remaining. At this point, the only Washington players to be included on the list are none exactly. Right? Bobby Wagner came in on the list at 81. Tunsil hasn't been listed. He will be. And Jaden Daniels hasn't been listed. He will be. Those will be the only other two on the list. Jaden was 21 last year. Tunsil was 86 last year, but Tunsil had a really good year last year. Tunsil's going to be in the top 50, don't you think?
I would
Or do
think.
you think it's just going to be Jaden?
But like
left?
The thing is, Lamar fell 67 fell from 2 to 69.
Lamar was listed. This is the vote by the players, just so everybody remembers. It's the NFL Top 100 players that the NFL Network counts down 10 at a time. Each week it'll finish up with the top 10 players at the end of August. We just ended up with basically the number 51 player to the number 60 player unveiled today. And the shocker so far is that Lamar Jackson fell from the number 2 player in the league last year, the number 2 player in the league, to number 69 this year. Let me give you an idea of the quarterbacks that are on this list already ahead of him, ahead of Lamar Jackson. Ahead of Lamar Jackson are Bo Nix, Trevor Lawrence. And then right behind him are Jordan Love, Baker Mayfield, Brock Purdy, Bryce Young. Yes, Jaden Daniels is going to be on this list. There's no way that Bryce Young is on this list and Jaden Daniels isn't on the list. Jaden was 21 last year, so he's clearly going to be in the top 50. And I think Tunsil will be in the top 50, and that'll be it. Those two players are the only two that will be on the list. Terry was last year 52 on the list. He's not going to be on the list this year. Right? Yeah, he's not going to be on the list this year. Here are the wide receivers that have been listed so far. Tet McMillan was 87, A.J. Brown 80, Zay Flowers 71, Cortland Sutton 68, Drake London 66, Chris Olave 64, Nico Collins 58. Lamb comes in at 55, Devontae Adams at 53. So Terry's not going to be on that list. Where was CeeDee Lamb last year?
He fell 20 spots, so he was the 35th best player.
And where was A.J. Brown last year? 29th he was. Well, can you explain to me why Lamar Jackson dropped from 2 to 69?
Well, and that's why I'm concerned about Jaden's potential to be on this list or to be left
he's gonna
off
be
this
on the
list.
I know.
I feel the same way.
Be on the list.
I feel the same way, but
Yeah.
It's with an injury-plagued season last year. Lamar really tried to fight through it, and I think he kept a lot of the injury stuff quiet. So
Yeah.
I don't know how many people around the league are like, "Oh, Lamar played hurt last year, and he stunk it up." I think people just kind of look at it, his performance last year and games played, and be like, "Oh, this guy just had a really bad year last year." But so I think that's probably the reason that he fell so far. But man, it's really, really undeserved.
These are players around the league.
I know.
Did they just mess up their ballot and just forget about Lamar? That doesn't really make sense to me at all. Look, I think there are definitely a lot of NFL fans that think Lamar is overrated. I think there are a lot of people like me that think Lamar is great, but until he actually performs at a high level in the postseason, he's not going to be, in my view, considered as like one of the greats of all time, even though he's got 2 MVPs. Lamar Jackson has not played well yet in a playoff game. He has, even the Buffalo loss from a couple of years ago was not a great playoff game for him. They didn't make the playoffs last year. They lost to the Steelers in the season finale in a game that they could have won to win the division. I I still don't see him as the 69th best player in the league. And I certainly don't see those quarterbacks that are in front of him, Trevor Lawrence and Bo Nix, as being worthy, and Jalen Hurts of being worthy of being in front of Lamar Jackson. That is a really odd, the only thing you look at, I guess, is if you're just going on statistics. He had 2,549 passing yards last year and 21 passing touchdowns, 7 picks. And only had last year for him, this is unusual, because he played in 13 games. Remember, he missed 4 games last year, but he only rushed for 349 yards in the season last year, which I'm going to assume is the fewest for him in his career. Has to be, right? Yes, not even close. But still, that's a big drop. Yeah, no, Jaden's going to be in the top 50. I would guess that he's in the next 10 that are listed. That's my guess. He's going to be in the next 10. That would make sense to me. Caleb Williams at 51. He's going to be in the next 10. Drake May's going to come in higher than him. There's no doubt. Obviously, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Patrick Mahomes, Dak Prescott, hasn't been listed on this list yet, so he's going to come in. Matt Stafford, Jared Goff hasn't been listed. I wonder if Sam Darnold's going to make this list. That would be interesting. I don't view Sam Darnold anywhere near these other quarterbacks. But Stafford, Goff, Prescott, May, Jaden Daniels of the quarterbacks and Josh Allen and Mahomes. Those 7 minimum are left on this list in the top 50. Which means, let me just mention, that Jaden's going to be a top 10 quarterback per the players. So, did you have any other thoughts? Because you and Brian have been talking about this list without me for a few days now.
I mean, so it's just every time a quarterback comes up, it's like, he's not better than Lamar. He's not better than Lamar. Like Trevor Lawrence being at 62, like it's just a lot of it is.
Bo Nix is the one. Are you high players? You literally would take Bo Nix over Lamar Jackson?
Take Jalen Hurts over Lamar Jackson? Lamar is better Jalen Hurts.
Yeah, I mean, that doesn't make any sense to me, especially given that he was number 2 a year ago.
Yeah. I honestly, you proposing that players just kind of forgot about Lamar Jackson's existence feels like the most likely.
Yeah, he wasn't in the postseason, so we didn't have the major conversation about Lamar in the postseason. Every time the Ravens go to the postseason, is this going to be the year that Lamar gets it done, that he plays well, that Baltimore advances, that Baltimore wins the Super Bowl? And it hasn't happened yet. But, Patrick Mahomes didn't play a big portion of the season. Joe Burrow didn't play a big portion of the season, and they're going to be ranked more likely than not appropriately. Look, I would take Burrow, Mahomes, Josh Allen, all of those guys over Lamar Jackson. But Lamar Jackson's not the 69th best player in the league. No way. And he's not outside of the top 10 of the quarterbacks in the NFL. No way. All right, we're done for the day. Enjoy the weekend. Chris is next.